Hey everybody, it's Dave with Android Police, and today we're taking our first look at the DROID BIONIC by Motorola on Verizon's 4G LTE network. I just got this phone yesterday, so I've not had a huge amount of time to play with it, but so far I've made a few conclusions about what I like and what I don't. There were a lot of concerns that the BIONIC would be a pretty hefty, big, unwieldy phone like every 4G LTE phone Verizon's come out with so far, and I think that's a big concern for a lot of people. I have to say that the BIONIC actually feels really good in the hand. It's fairly light for what it is, for having a 4.3-inch screen, and the thickness, yeah, it's about as thick as my Nexus 1, honestly. Let me show you side by side here. As you can see, it's not a huge difference at the top there where the BIONIC bevels out, where the camera is. It does get a little thicker, but generally speaking, you won't feel it's any bigger than like a Droid X2. The Droid X2 is a little thinner, but I don't think you're going to really notice it that much because the weight's pretty comparable. Sorry about that. What else here? As far as how the phone works, it's very snappy. It was actually a little less snappy before I took off a few of Motorola's widgets that they have on here on the not Moto Blur overlay. But once you take those off, it moves pretty quickly. I don't know if you can really see here, but when you switch between home screens, the brightness kind of like flares out in this kind of weird 3D animation. I don't like it at all. Because sometimes it gets stuck on the dark gray look, and I don't know what's up with that. Like it's a shadows over everything. It's kind of annoying, but it doesn't really detract from the usability of the phone. And you can't really turn that off. I tried turning the animations off. It doesn't get rid of that effect, so you're kind of stuck with it. As far as everything else, I've not noticed anything's incredibly slow. As far as bugginess goes so far, there seems to be the market glitch where extremely large apps like big games give you the not enough storage space error, but I'm pretty sure that's specific to the phone, and the apps that are giving that error probably need to update themselves for the BIONIC. I think that's the issue there, but I'm not certain, obviously. As far as battery life goes, I haven't really had time to test that yet, so you'll hear about that in the full review for sure. It does take a long time to charge. I did notice that. Pull off the cover here. Okay. See, it's a pretty big battery. It's actually pretty thin, though. It's a 1700 milliamp hour, I think. Something like that. So it's a hefty battery. It's the biggest one in any Verizon 4G LTE device to date. So, its battery life should be better than Thunderbolt. So far, I mean, honestly, I've had it on for like the last 3 hours, and the battery bar is still at full, but, how well can you trust a battery gauge? The big gripe a lot of people have had about Motorola's most recent phones, like the Atrix, the Droid X2, the Photon, and I'm trying to think if there's any others. Nothing's coming to mind. The Droid 3. They all have what's called a Pentile QHD display. Now, the big advantage to this is battery life. Motorola's newest phones have all had exceptional battery life compared to their previous phones and compared to all the competition. That's because Pentile uses a much smaller amount of energy when it's operating at even full brightness. The drawback is Pentile does look pixely. Despite the higher resolution, you can notice the pixel grid lines on everything. If your eyes aren't great, you probably won't notice as much. But for me, coming from a phone with an AMO LED display, I definitely notice the difference. And another drawback to Pentile that I've noticed so far is the brightness distortion and color distortion when the phone's held at an angle is pretty extreme. Not something I'd expect from like a Galaxy S2, which has almost no distortion based on the angle. So that's a drawback for some people. Honestly, I think it's a compromise on battery life and resolution as well. You can you do get the sense that more stuff fits because of the higher resolution on the screen, and it does make reading a bit easier. But other than that, we've never been big fans of the display. If you read our Droid X2 review, it gets harped on pretty bad. And I can't say I'm a big fan of it either. But at the same time, it's not a deal breaker for me. The phone's perfectly usable. It's not like you can't see anything. It's just not the same quality of display you'll find on something like the Galaxy S2. Don't mean to keep name dropping it, but it is the phone that this phone's going to be compared against for at least the next few months. Other than that, I probably don't have too much else to say for initial impressions. I don't want to draw too many conclusions quite yet. I want to spend some time with the phone. Oh, one thing. I did make a couple calls on the BIONIC, and I have to say that call quality is fantastic. The speaker bar up here on this phone is so clear and crisp and loud that hearing the other party is such a breeze. I got the sense that the other people heard me pretty well. I didn't actually ask, but that's one thing I love about it. Coming from a Nexus 1 and using several other phones over the last, maybe year, this is by far the best as far as making phone calls goes. So I can say with confidence, the BIONIC is the best Android phone I've used for actually making phone calls. So there is that. As far as everything else goes, we'll save that for the full review, and you'll hear about that probably in a few days. Alright everyone, this is David with Android Police, signing off.